Joining us now on the Deseret First Credit Union hotline for another Matich Monday is ESPN college football insider and analyst Trevor Matich, BYU national champion. Trevor, how are your emotions this morning following an unreal weekend of college football, including another last-second win for BYU?
I mean, there was so many unbelievable games and unbelievable moments with massive storylines. I feel like I've been in a dryer full of puppies on spin. It's crazy.
I'm trying to take in what that even means.
Yeah, well, just a lot of stuff going on. A lot of ways to get poked, prodded, bit, nipped, and excited. You know, there's so much going on. There's just stimulation everywhere, and college football lived up to the hype. It doesn't always, but it sure did this weekend.
Our Twitter question is this: what was your biggest takeaway from BYU's win over Arizona? What do you think?
Biggest win was resilience. They had a couple of opportunities to let that thing get away when Arizona was really on a roll. And BYU, especially on defense, they bore down and they made the stops that they had to make, not just at the end. I know Arizona scored late to take the lead, et cetera, but they should have scored a lot more. Arizona's got a very, very good offense. And then BYU's offense at the end to drive down and get in position for that game-winning field goal in the first year of a new offense, where they really weren't that efficient. I mean, they got good numbers and stuff, but they left a lot of plays on the table. The fact that both sides of the ball and special teams made the plays they had to make in the big moments when they had to make them, that's what stood out.
What does this win over Arizona mean for BYU football?
It means a win. And with the schedule as brutal as it is awesome that BYU has got this win under their belt because, you know, BYU has the potential this year of being a better team, but not having as good a record just because of the nature of the schedule. And getting this win in before going to Utah, and then UCLA, and then a very good West Virginia team, and then a good Toledo team, and then Michigan State, and then Mississippi State, and then Boise State, and then at Cincinnati before they finally go to Southern Utah. You know, it's good to have that first win under their belt, and just from a standpoint of confidence, but also from that win-loss record, because they need to get to 6. I know they'd like to get to 12.
What did you think of BYU's pro-style offense in Game 1?
It was interesting because it was so opposite of what we're accustomed to at BYU and really in college football. Even the likes of Alabama have gone to a little bit more spread action, although they're still fundamentally a power downhill team. And the reason you do that, by the way, is because it gives the quarterback and the offensive coordinator more options to attack a defense. The way the up-tempo spread works, the run-pass option, is that a quarterback will look at one defender and make him wrong. If the defender does this, the quarterback does that. If the defender does that, the quarterback does this. He can hand the ball off, he can run it himself, or he can throw a bubble screen or throw it down the field. So you go as fast as you can go looking at one guy, and that guy will change. And what that means is you might run 85 plays in a game, but maybe 10 or so aren't very good plays, maybe more, because they're just not the right play for that defense. But if you get stopped, and you'll try to make up for it by volume. What this pro-style offense where you huddle up and take your time does is maximize every individual play. And instead of just looking at one guy and making him wrong without regard for the rest of the defense, the quarterback decodes what the defense is doing and always is in position, theoretically, to be able to attack the weak spot of the defense, not just the weak spot of one part of the field. And so once quarterbacks really get a fundamental knowledge of that playbook and of defensive football, they understand defenses as well as they do offenses, then this style of offense provides options that a fast offense just doesn't provide.
Trevor Matich
a spread offense.
Trevor Matich of ESPN with us on BYU Sports Nation. It is a Matich Monday. Jamal Williams in his first game in 644 days, 29 rushes, 162 yards, 5.6 yards per carry. What's your opinion of Jamal Williams against Arizona and moving forward?
I'll give you one word: angry. He ran angry, didn't he?
Man.
I mean, he just bludgeoned people. He was seeking contact. He relished inflicting pain on the way by. It was such a fantastic physical presence that helped to open up the rest of that offense. And, you know, we have left a lot of yards on the table just because of penalties that called back some pretty big runs. But I'll tell you this, boy, that offensive line continues to sustain blocks. And that's all they have to do. They don't have to drive people 5 yards off the ball. If they can stay on their blocks Williams can run through arm tackles and get into that second level anyway. I tell you, this is, you talk about old school Alabama style. Well, this is the kind of style that Williams brings to it. That powerful, bludgeoning back that wears you down, and then at the end, he breaks your heart.
Taysom Hill went 21 of 29, 72%, 202 yards and a touchdown. What do you think of his return performance?
I'm so happy for him just because of all that he's been through. I think this offense will be good for him because it'll require him to run less. There'll be less physical risk. Now, they'll still get the ball in his hands moving around. They'll still run him and roll him out and things like that because he's special when he does that. But it won't be as much risk as it would be in a typical college-style offense. So we start there. The second thing is I think in the first game running this offense, he did well. He distributed the ball well. He made good reads on short and intermediate passes. I think he'll learn as he watches the tape that he needs to make even faster reads at times. He'll see that he left a lot of yards on the table as well. And really, there are things that Utah will take advantage of that Arizona could not. For example, he threw a touchdown pass to the right side. It was relatively short, maybe 10 yards or so, I guess. And the receiver caught the ball right about at the goal line, kind of on the right side. And touchdown, everybody celebrates, yay. But I looked at that and thought, if that were a better defense, that would have been intercepted. Because he looked to confirm that the receiver was open before he threw it. Well, a better defense, he'll confirm that the receiver's open, and by the time he throws the ball and it gets there, he won't be open anymore. He's got to anticipate when he'll be open and throw the ball before he's open. Now, he did that some in this game, and he will learn of opportunities that he could have done that better as he goes forward. But overall, because it's the first time in this offense, I would give him a solid A-.
It was the first game, but I think that Taysom Hill, at times as a runner, didn't look quite the same. That may have something to do with he wants to make sure he plays the whole season and plays it straight there. It may have something to do with returning from 3 season-ending injuries. I don't know. What did you think of Taysom Hill as a runner?
Well, as a runner, I think he took care of himself. That's not to say that he wasn't courageous, but I think that he was smart about that because in this offense, the running needs to be a supplement to the throwing. And you don't help your throwing if you let yourself get battered, and that's any quarterback. So we start there, and then that I think is a coaching point that he receives. They tell him, get down. Don't put your shoulder down and try to drive through people. You're not a linebacker. Get as much as you can and get down. And so I thought he did a good job at that. We'll see as the season goes on whether or not him not looking the same as a runner has more to do with a choice or the fact that he's just not back yet. And really physically he's fine. But the confidence that you lose when you're injured and you come back is tough to regain sometimes because you just have to get hit in unexpected, awkward ways that you don't welcome. And then get up off the ground and assess. Yeah, no, I was okay. I'm fine. I'm okay. And then have it happen again and again and again until it becomes the new normal. In the meantime, you'll be thinking about it.
Yeah, that was my thought. It just takes some time to get back into the flow of what full speed feels like in those contact drills and whatnot. Trevor Matich with us, ESPN college football analyst. Let's talk about the BYU defense a little bit more. They hold Arizona to 16 points. They forced 2 interceptions. They got an interception on a 2-point conversion by Butch Pau, 4 sacks, 8 tackles for loss. What was the most impressive thing you saw from BYU's defense?
Well, they held an Arizona offense, which is the strength of the team, with a veteran quarterback in Anu Solomon to just 16 points. And I was very impressed with how the defensive line held up. This offense is sort of designed to wear a defensive line out physically. They run a lot of plays. They go sideline to sideline. So they'll throw bubble screens, they'll run jet sweeps, they'll run to the outside, they'll run inside. The whole idea is so that in the fourth quarter they can take over the game because now you're gassed, you're tired. And the defensive line stood in and held up. And I thought that was very impressive.
BYU now faces a Utah team that they've lost to 5 games in a row. Yet there's a new feel to this as Kalani Sitake is the head coach, obviously the connection there with Utah. What do you think of the matchup between BYU and Utah this Saturday?
Well, the matchup still favors Utah pretty strongly, in part because this is Kalani Sitake and his staff's first year. Utah, their players have been recruited to their system, to their style. They're mature in terms of their roster. They are mature in terms of their understanding of expectations. And BYU, those things are all brand new. And that matters. It makes a difference, especially when it comes to scheme, because whenever you're learning new offensive and defensive schemes, you tend to think before you play. That slows you down on the field because you're thinking through your assignment, and then you do it. When you know what's happening because you've been in it for years, like Utah, you don't think before you go. You just react because it becomes natural. It's instinctive now because you already know it. Well, BYU is still learning it, so that favors Utah. Utah overall, as good as BYU's defense is, Utah's defense is one of the best in the Pac-12. And they may have the best defensive line in the Pac-12. So BYU's offensive line will be challenged in this game. So there's that. But BYU has the advantage in a couple of places. I think it's safety with Kai Nakua especially. They have an advantage. I think BYU's secondary is at least as good as Utah's and might be better. I think Jamal Williams at running back is better than anything Utah's got. And Taysom Hill at quarterback has the edge. So even though I think from a maturity of the program standpoint and a few places in position groups, Utah has the advantage, I think BYU has enough places that they can game plan to play the game in their positions of advantage. So I would expect to see Taysom Hill run around more than he did against Arizona because I think they'll need to in order to open running lanes.
BYU, in part to the efforts of a walk-on true freshman kicker, are 1-0 going to Utah. Let's talk a little bit about Jake Oldroyd, who became an overnight household name across BYU Sports Nation after knocking a 33-yard field goal right down the middle of the uprights. As a player, Trevor, what is it like to see the game come down to a kick by your teammate and one that has never attempted a collegiate field goal before?
Right, that's the thing. I mean, in a massive opener with so much at stake for a brand new coaching staff to leave that game excited and on a positive note or crushed at having let it slip away at the end, everything that's at stake. And to go out there at 18 years old and nail that field goal, that means he's got a brain like a steel trap. He can compartmentalize because that is the place for a young kid to freak out if he's disposed to freak out. And what you had was a young kid in Oldroyd that didn't freak. It was calm. It was awesome. And you know what? When you're a kicker, confidence breeds on confidence. When you're a kicker, lack of confidence and missing field goals in moments like that also snowballs on you. So this is really, really good for him. By the way, he's 18, right?
Yeah.
Yes. Turned in his
Is
papers
Taysom Hill old enough
yesterday.
to be his father?
Taysom would have been 8, so no.
Oh, okay, that's a little young.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, funny note
not
is
far from it though. Yeah.
Utah's kicker Andy Phillips is 9 years older than Jake Oldroyd, so we'll see that matchup this weekend.
Wow.
Well, a great first week of college football. What were some of your takeaways from some of the great games there?
Well, Alabama, how dominant they were over USC. USC has as good a group and talented a group, athletic, of skill players as anybody they'll face except maybe LSU, and probably a better offensive line than LSU. And USC just toyed with them, just Alabama embarrassed them. And Alabama has a history of inflicting crushing defeats on brand-name programs and openers like this, in part because they're the best in the country at getting the next generation of young players ready to step in from backup to starter in game one. And so they're not a good team to schedule early in the season. And, boy, USC limps back to L.A. humiliated. And that's not a good thing for a program like that. I look at the multiple quarterbacks that were played by teams, Notre Dame, Texas, Georgia, Auburn, that played multiple quarterbacks for different reasons, Alabama. And really the only one that had a true two-quarterback system was Texas. The rest were just trying to flesh out who the guy was. But it was good in some places, Texas. It was bad in other ways. Notre Dame, by the way, contributed to their loss. And so it's interesting to see that in big games early, teams need cupcakes. They just need cupcakes because they need to sort through these issues in a game that you're likely to win. So that you don't drop a game with a roster that's not as ready as it will be 2 or 3 weeks from now. So I'm glad that we had the big weekend of opening games. It was fantastic, but it will be interesting to see if the committee penalizes the big-name teams that lost to other big-name teams as they get into November and they start to put together their playoff rankings because, they could have played cupcakes and they chose not to. Should they be rewarded for that even though they lost?
It's the most wonderful time of the year because we're discussing college football on BYU Sports Nation, and it's a Matich Monday with Trevor Matich of ESPN. Trevor, always great to talk to you. Thanks for the time.
Most wonderful time of the year. You should write a song like that. That's awesome. That sounds like a song to me.
Perhaps. I'll think about that. Thanks, Trevor.
All right, guys.
Trevor Matich on the Deseret First Credit Union Hotline. Deseret First, your values, your timeline, your financial future. I would like to quote Trevor Matich early in this conversation. I feel like I've been in a dryer full of puppies.
To which,
What?
at Dr. Steve Best, watching or listening to the show, said, I'm on my way to get some puppies. I got to find out if you're right. # fire up the dryer. To which Trevor quickly has responded and said, nice, going to be a fluffy day.